Hey everybody, movie reviewer next, bleh, movie reviewer next door here, and I'm back with another review. This time finishing off the Boondock Saints duology for now with the Boondock Saints 2 All Saints Day. This is a 2009 crime action thriller film, directed by Troy Duffy, and it stars Sean Patrick Flannery, Norman Reedus, Billy Connolly, Clifton Collins Jr., Julie Benz, and Peter Fonda and Judd Nelson. In this film, skillfully framed by an unknown enemy for the murder of a priest, wanted vigilante McManus brothers Murphy and Connor must come out of hiding on a sheep farm in Ireland to fight for justice in Boston. So, what did I think of the Boondock Saints 2 All Saints Day? Well, I don't hate the film. I think it's half decent, but it really is a step down in a lot of ways, and I do want to explain that I love the first film to death. And this film kind of feels like it's more so copying a lot of the things the first film does just because the first film does it instead of making a lot of its own choices. So that did kind of annoy me a bit, but let me get to the cast. Sean Patrick Flannery plays Connor McManus. I think he does a decent job here. He seems a lot more angry this time around. He shouts a lot more, and not that that's necessarily a problem in of itself, but it's during scenes that don't really warrant it. And in the first film, he was overly emotional when he needed to be, so it was kind of odd. He's still not bad though. Norman Reedus, same thing. Murphy McManus, he's also decent. Just seems a bit less into it this time. Billy Connolly is great once again as Il Duce. I thought he was a very interesting character, and while he doesn't have the most screen time of anybody, I really did want to learn more about his character. Clifton Collins Jr. plays Romeo, Mexican boxer, I guess. They encounter on a ship on the way to Boston. I like Clifton Collins Jr. I think he's a very good actor. I just wish they'd written this character a bit better because, I mean, there's not really a lot to it. He's just kind of the butt of a lot of jokes. Julie Benz plays Eunice Bloom, or Special Agent Eunice Bloom. Julie Benz is a very hot actress. Um, I did find her annoying at times, but I also kind of got used to her. She's kind of a descendant of Smecker from the first film. I will say she's nowhere near as good as Willem Dafoe, but I didn't mind her. Peter Fonda plays the Roman, who essentially becomes our main villain. I do wish Peter Fonda was in more of this because I do like him in this film. Um, and I wish him as a villain he had more of a presence. And Judd Nelson as Concezio Iacovetta, the son of uh, the mob boss villain from the first film. He doesn't really do much, but I don't mind Judd Nelson as an actor. It's just that he overdoes a lot of the acting, and not in a fun way like the guy from the first film. But yeah, Boondock Saints 2 All Saints Day. The best way I can describe this film is it's kind of remaking a lot of the first film. For a lot of major plot points from the first and major editing decisions from the first are almost one to one copied here. The action scenes happening in flashbacks, the character that goes around the thing around the Eunice Bloom being the character that walks around the crime scene, either listening to music or doing something and knowing exactly what happened, just like Smecker. Um, a main character gets killed in the second half, and it's supposed to be very dramatic, but it was a character I didn't really care about from the first, so it didn't really matter to me. Um, but yeah, this film feels like it's trying to recapture the the like cult status of the original, but it doesn't exactly know how. Um, because like a lot of the stuff that happens in this movie felt like a big downgrade to me. Now, I will say this film does get better in the second half. The action in the second half is well done, well staged, well executed. I do still have a small issue with that. In a lot of the action scenes, there is little to no dialogue, like in the first, but in the first, you still had the sound effects, like the guns and blood, like all of the sound effects, which kind of heightened the violence. It put it front and center. It was very unflinching. Here, it's still pretty decently violent, and I'll give them this. They used a lot of practical effects still. I didn't notice a bunch of CGI. There was definitely CGI used for like backdrops, like green screen at times, but they never used a ton of uh CGI for the violence or anything. Um but during a lot of these shootouts, I felt like something was missing, like the sound effects from their guns. Now, sometimes they're there and sometimes they aren't. Sometimes when you see like the bullets hit the wall, and there's a spark, you don't hear anything. And it's mostly just playing the music, which the music is fine. I think Jeff Danis' score here doesn't compare to the first because the first is just so 90s and I love that vibe. Here, it's still fine, but it has a similar tone to it, but it's just not as fun as in the first. But I just wish they would have relied more on the sound effects again this time to really make the violence hit. Um, one thing. Sorry, I'm tired. One thing that I will say is a massive downgrade from the first is the quality of the writing. Now, this is mostly in the first half because there's not as much comedy in the second half. It more so goes straight um serious, kind of like the first does, where again, a main character dies in the second half of the first film. And then from then on it is serious, serious, serious. Um but in this film, the humor, people say that the humor was lowbrow in the first and like really cheap shot, really shitty humor. That's this film. The humor is it's like poop jokes, gay jokes, and it's not that I'm offended by the gay jokes. I'm just offended that they aren't better jokes because it's literally like, "Oh, we handed you a tiny gun. Can I call myself your girlfriend now?" And it's like it's almost like a parody of the first film's humor because the first film's humor I actually found funny. And this film I was just like, really guys? Really? We're doing this shit? And I don't know, just something felt off about that. I wish the writing was better. And it's still Troy Duffy writing, which sucks cuz I'm starting to think maybe the first film's sound writing was a fluke. But who knows? Um but oh yeah, Julie Benz. I can talk about her. Uh, Again, she plays Special Agent Eunice Bloom. She's brought in with the three Irish detectives from the first film. They're working together. Uh, she's not. She's nowhere near as interesting, fun to watch. Well, she doesn't act nearly as good as Defoe does in the first film. And I will say, Defoe does make a cameo later in the film, an uncredited one, but he does still show his face. But it was really nice seeing that ending. I like the ending a lot of this film, where they're like, oh, well, they get out of prison, that whole thing. But I wish Defoe was in this film again in some way more than just a cameo. Like, I don't know, just it would have made this film feel a bit more like it's trying to pay homage to the first film rather than copy the first film if, I don't know, Defoe had what was like helping them be on the run, but also helping them solve this thing. I think that could have been cool. But maybe in the future we'll get Defoe back with the third one that has been in production for forever. So I'm not holding out much hope for it coming out. It might not be that great. Who knows? But what is it? There's just something about this film. Like, again, I gave it a 7. I thought it was decent enough. It's very close to a 6, though. I gave it a 7 because of like, the action in the film is pretty alright. I don't mind the action. I think it's nice and violent. It's still well staged, for sure, and practical. It's just the sound effects kind of aren't there for me. And, certain bits of this film do look a bit cheap. There's a there's an FBI set for a guy that's like antagonizing Bloom later in the film, and it looks really, really, really cheap, like really bad. And again, certain sound effects don't sound right. They use some stock sound effects at a point, and I was really annoyed by that. Um, this film didn't really have the interesting staging that the first film did with certain editing bits where it does have some slow-mo and it's fine, but this film just has some weird decisions. There's a bit kind of in the first half of the film where people get shot in a bar, and it happens, and then it plays again but with Mexican music behind it, and I'm like, what? Like, ex- what? Why did we see that again? Why was there Hispanic music? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if this is trying to be lol random or what, but it just seemed a bit off to me. Um, Again, Flannery and Reedus, something seems a bit off with them too. Apparently they enjoyed making this, which is cool, but I hope that ending doesn't go unresolved, the setup for a sequel. But yeah, I would probably not be giving this as lenient a rating if it wasn't connected to Boondock Saints, but I'm also kind of disappointed with this still. Again, it's barely decent, but I'm still disappointed with it because I love the original so much. So there's not really much. Let's say something. Oh yeah, Il Duce. Um. Billy Connolly's character gets more of his backstory. We get to see how he became what he is today. We get to see where his gun uh his gun suit came from, where he's got the like guns here and here, here and here, and then on the sides. So that was really cool to see. Um, I kind of wish that was the movie. I kind of wish this was just an origin story for Il Duce. But yeah, I don't mind this film. It's just I'm having a hard time talking about it because, you know, but I don't hate the film. It's just that I think it has a lot of issues and it really doesn't, at times it feels like it doesn't know where it wants the comedy to go, where it wants the story to go, because then there's like a million different villains and it kind of feels unfocused, but yeah. I don't hate it. I don't. But that was my review of Boondock Saints 2, All Saints Day. Sorry, this is a bit short, but meh, whatever. If you like the film, or if you've seen the film, let me know in the comments what you thought. Got any recommendations, put them there as well, and movie reviewer next door.